Hello, welcome to week 3 of our course. In this week, we will be discussing the implications of the territorial expansion of the United States in the 19th century, particularly the early to mid-19th century. Texas and much of the southwestern part of the United States, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, were not originally part of the United States following the Treaty of 1783 in which the United States gained its independence. Rather, these territories, Texas, California, New Mexico, Arizona, were part of the Spanish Empire. They had been conquered by the Spanish going back several centuries and had a large and diverse population of Spaniards, Native Americans, Latinos, Latinas, Hispanics, had settled these regions long before they became part of the United States. So a few historical events bring these territories into the boundaries of the United States. The first was the rebellion in Texas. Mexico gains its independence from Spain in the early 19th century, and Tejas was part of Mexico. It was a province within Mexico. The province was relatively sparsely settled, and the Mexican government decided to invite Anglo-Americans to settle in the territory in the hopes of furthering the economic development of the territory and increasing tax revenue from the territory. Ultimately, the American settlers in this region, along with Tejanos as well, a number of Tejanos as well, would rise up in rebellion against the Mexican government and would establish Texas as an independent state, the Lone Star Republic, which would later be annexed by the United States. The second major conflict that led to the expansion of the United States was the Mexican War. In the mid-19th century, the United States and Mexico went to war, and as a consequence of this war, in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed. As a result of the United States' victory in this war, the United States gained control over a vast swath of territory, including New Mexico, California, Arizona, and parts of a number of other states. This increased the size of the United States by about 20%. It also vastly increased the Latino-Latina population of the United States. So it's important to note that the Latino-Latina population of the U.S. was not increasing because of immigration. Latinos and Latinas were not moving into the United States. Rather, the boundaries of the United States moved to incorporate territories where Latinos, Latinas had been residing for centuries. So, persons who had been Mexican citizens suddenly found themselves living within the territorial boundaries of the United States. As these territories became part of the United States, there often was an influx of Anglo-American settlers. This was most rapid in the case of California, also fairly rapid in the case of Texas. And you have the bizarre situation where individuals whose families had resided in these territories for decades or even centuries were being regarded as foreigners by relative newcomers, Anglo-Americans who had recently settled in the territories. And you see the inhabitants who had been there for a much longer period of time historically facing discrimination from the Anglo-American newcomers, essentially, into these territories. Even Tejanos who had fought in the rebellion against Mexico to establish the independence of Texas found themselves facing discrimination and being written out of the history of Texas. So during this unit, you're asked to read Chapter 5 of Our America, The Curse of Zorro, and you're asked to watch a film, Latino Americans, Episode 3. You'll also be reading some primary source documents from the early 20th century as well. I look forward to working with you during this week.